Hello and welcome back to ScreenBlue.com.
In this lecture, we're going to learn about interface. So what is an interface? Interface in Java is a reference type similar to a class, but contain only signatures, default methods, static methods, and nested types without containing any implementation inside the body. Okay, so what that basically means is interface is kind of like a class, right? However, it only has abstract method. Okay, you can only have abstract methods and the variables that are static and final. So you can only have those abstract methods. So what are the key features of interfaces? All the method inside the interface is empty or does not have any implementation, which means they are all abstract methods. Interface cannot be instantiated just like abstract class. So you cannot also instantiate just like abstract class. Interface does not contain any constructors. All methods inside the interface are abstract. Okay? All methods inside the interface are abstract method. All the instance fields must be declared both static and final. Just like I said before, interface cannot be extended by another class, but rather be implemented by other classes. So that's the difference between interface and abstract class, right? The child class can actually inherit the abstract class. However, in interface, you cannot extend it. You can only implement it. So all the method inside the interface has to be used if implemented by other classes. Okay, that's the major difference between interface and also abstract class. Okay, the difference is that if you're actually implementing interface and if you have 20 methods inside the interface, you have to actually call all those 20 methods. The class B implements class A, the class B implements interface A. If the interface A has 20 methods, right, abstract methods, class B actually have to call all those 20 methods. So interface is also implicitly abstract, so no need to use abstract keyword, right? Since interface has all abstract methods, so you don't have to say it's abstract, implicitly abstract. So interface has only abstract methods, so no need to use abstract keyword for methods as well. Just like class, you don't have to say abstract methods because interface has only abstract method. So for instance, I've got this interface called vehicle. I got start, stop, and cruise. So here you can use public or not, it's up to you. So here I've got this start, stop, and cruise. So just like the abstract class, right? So I had an abstract method in my abstract class. Similarly, right, that this method here is also abstract because it does not have any implementation inside the body. It's just the method name and you just parentheses in here. Another method named stop, parenthesis, another method named cruise, parenthesis. It does not have implementation details. So you can also have variables in here, but it has to be static and final. Okay, so now if I have a class that actually implements that interface, right? So like I said, an interface, you can implement the interface. You cannot extend. You cannot inherit the interface. You can implement. So you have to use implements keyword instead of extends. So when I do the implements vehicle, I actually have to call all those three methods, right? So start, stop, and cruise. So here I said system.println starting, system.println stopping, system.println cruising, right? So I've got the static void main method here. So for the F-150 equal new forward, start, stop, cruise. So when I do that, it says starting, stopping, cruising. Basically, I created an object from this forward class, right, which actually implements interface, and it says start, stop, and cruise, right? It says starting, stopping, and cruising. So now we understood what the interface is, right? So your question would be, okay, why would you use interface, right? What are the situations you use interface, right? So in real project, right, in real-time Java programming language, right, you would be seeing a lot of interfaces, right? So interfaces is kind of like your, what do you call that, contents, right? So if you actually, you know, buy a book and wanted to read a book, right? So you have all this table contents, and you would have like the heading here, like, and what the topic's going to be, like the topics. So you would have like a, let's say, chapter 1, and you're going to say, let's say, for instance, Java, right? Chapter 1, string, then you'd have string methods and so on, right? So just like that, right? This interface is kind of like a table of contents, right? So class would actually implement, so you're actually going through the table of contents, right? So you're going to actually implement the interface. So let's say, you know, like, let's say, for instance, you have an interface vehicle, right? So interface vehicle is like very common interfaces. So all the vehicle would have start, stop, and cruise, right? So every time, you know, all the other vehicles, right? Let's say for instance Ford, Toyota, right? They have all this start, stop, and cruise feature, right? So you wanted to implement that vehicle interface because this vehicle has start, stop, and cruise. It means your class would actually have to also need that, right? So if you create an interface and you want, like the other programmer, okay, you wanted to actually use this interface, you have to use all these methods in here. Okay, that is the advantage as well as the disadvantage as well for some programmers. So that is pretty much about interface. I know it's a little confusing, but if you play around with some other examples, it's going to be very clear. Okay, like I said again, interface contains the abstract method only, right? What is the difference between interface and abstract class? That is common interview questions for Java. If you're going to apply as a Java programmer, right? That's probably one of the common interview questions because they're kind of similar, right? The interface all have abstract method. However, abstract class can have abstract method and the non-abstract method, means your regular instance method. And also, if you can only inherit means you can have a child class that actually inherit the parent abstract class. And also you can, let's say your abstract class has the start, stop, and cruise, right? Let's say your vehicle is an abstract class. So you actually don't have to do stop and cruise. You can only do start, right? However, in interfaces, you have to actually call all the three. All right, so let's go back to our IntelliJ here. And I'm actually going to create a new package. I'm going to call it interface example. So now in here, I'm actually going to create a class. So in here, interface, right? We're going to create an interface. So if you look into this dropdown, right? So the one thing here is, if you look into this dropdown, you have a class and interface, right? So I'm actually going to use interface in here. And we're going to call this one name here as vehicle. Oops, vehicle. Click OK in here. And here, I'm actually going to do public void start, public void stop, public void cruise. So I've got start, stop, and cruise, right? These three features are available in all vehicles, right? So what you're actually saying is that, okay, you wanted to actually use this vehicle interface. That means you have to use all this method. So this is kind of like a signed order, right? So you tell other programmers like, okay, this is the interface here. So you're gonna have to use all this methods, abstract methods, and put your own implementation. So now I've got this interface in here. I'm gonna create a class in here. I'm gonna call it Ford, and this is gonna be class, right? So like I said here, I wanted to use all those method from this interface, right? So as you can see, there's an example here, like for this class you have this C in here, and for the interface you have I, right? So that's how IntelliJ differentiates between class and interface. So I'm actually going to implement the vehicle, right? So as soon as I do that, right, it's throwing an error like a Scooby error in here. So what it's saying is class Ford must be either declared abstract or implement abstract methods stop in vehicle. So what that basically means is like, okay, so I've got this interface, I'm trying to implement this vehicle, which means I also need to call all this method here. I'm actually going to copy this, and in here I'm actually going to paste there, and I need to provide implementation details. So which means I need to put a curly braces and put some code in there. So in here, I'm actually going to do system. Oops, so this curly braces should actually close this class in here. So I'm going to say system.println. So I'm going to say starting. Okay. Stopping. And cruising. Alright, so I got this extra P in here. So as you can see, IntelliJ is pretty smart that, okay, it identifies, okay, you're actually implementing the vehicle abstract class in here. You see here, right? So, but some other IDE might not be smart enough to do that. So normally if I actually call this end method, right, whether it's interface or abstract class, I put this override in here. So we're actually overriding the starts, stop, and cruise. Right, so I got this override in here. So let's create a public static void main here, and args. And in here, I'm actually going to do Ford F-150 equal new Ford F-150 dot start. Then you're going to, let's say, cruise. Then you're going to say stop. Alright, so if I run this, you're going to see starting, cruising, and stopping. So here we created an vehicle interface. I got the start, stop, and cruise. Those are abstract method because they have no implementation details. And on the Ford, this Ford class here, which actually implements this interface, right? So in here, I need to call like for all the vehicles start, stop, and cruise, right? So I'm actually saying, okay, I want to implement the vehicle. That means I need to create all the stream methods here. And here I actually implemented the string in here in the start and the stop and the cruise. And now I can create an object from this for, and I can do start, cruise, and stop. If I do a vehicle, v1 equal new vehicle. If I try to do this, it's gonna throw an it's gonna throw an error, right? It's saying that you see here, if I run this, it's gonna say that vehicle is abstract, cannot be instantiated, right? So the vehicle is interface, but you know, like it thinks that since this interface only have abstract method, it's also an abstract, but you don't have to call it abstract. So it's saying like IntelliJ says, okay, vehicle is abstract, so it cannot be instantiated, right? All right, so that is pretty much about interface. Okay, so again, it's still confusing, but once you play around with it, it's going to be very, very clear. So I want you guys to practice with some more examples. Okay, you can find it online and just play around with some other interfaces and examples, and you'd better understand it. All right, so that's it for this lecture. I'll see you guys in our next lecture.